Alright, as promised, I have a few hours of daylight left here, so I thought I would shoot a quick video on some metalworking. What we see here are 3 brooches. They're just varying styles and designs, and we're going to make one of those in just a moment. We're going to make this little small miniature guy to start with. This is one I've worn to Renaissance Festival a number of times for capes and kilts and all manner of things. I'm going to make another one similar to this on the next video, and then this is part of a set. As you can see, all of this little embellishment here keeps you from poking yourself, and basically there's 2 of them. The other match set is the left hand to this right-handed one. Anyway, let us begin. Now we're just using a basic torch setup here that you would use for cutting, brazing, or any number of other work. It's a tad windy out here, so the fire doesn't want to start. I have to go inside to light up. One moment. There we go. Now we have our flame source, our heat source, and we're ready to start working. Now this is just a basic, as I say, an oxygen propane rig used for brazing, cutting, all sorts of activities such as that. You can use oxyacetylene kits as well, those rigs, but propane is actually a lot more readily available, and it's also more stable than acetylene. So here at our little farm and shop, we just use propane. Now, so what we're going to start with, we're going to heat the end of this. Now this particular brass rod that I chose is just a fraction of an inch larger than the original. I evidently had a really odd in-between size. Now we're gonna start with that little curl. I'm gonna use this other pair of long nose. Long nose pliers are wonderful for this sort of activity. Let's get the hammer. Now, sometimes it actually helps when you're rolling it. You can do some of the work with pliers, but oftentimes it's easier to just use a hammer. Trying to do this in a very fast pace. Normally I spend a little more time on these. And let's see if we can knock this little baby out quickly. There we are. As you can see, we're just slowly getting a little curvature on this. Oftentimes when you're replicating another piece, it's good to keep one up here just to have a point of reference. I'm going to go ahead and flatten this edge first so that we can make sure and keep our proportions proper. Now we're going to bend out that just a hair. Now we're going to heat it again. Once it's been hammered and you start getting a little bit of thinning on the metal, you'll find that it heats up really quickly, and if you're not careful, you can melt right through this brass, and then you're starting over from scratch. That's looking good. We're gonna bring it on around a little bit here. Got a little more turn on it. That'll work. Now the reason that we're pulling this out, if you notice here, on your brooch, when it's the way that these little guys work, you press them through fabric, pull them up, and then they come to rest about like this. Now, you pull them out so that it'll actually give a little bit more place for the pin to rest in. Now let's go ahead and finish this up. Now what we're going to do here, this one's probably going to be just a little bit bigger than the first one, but not by much. We're going to heat this up to the melting point. There. See how quickly that melts through. That's why you have to use a lot of caution with your work, because you can melt your workpiece very quickly. Now we're going to go ahead and heat this up again and start it to turning. Same as before, we're going to go ahead and get a little bit of flattening action going. And as luck would have it, that one piece just kind of popped right off. You have to be careful not to heat them too much, which I did there. Because when you do, it will oxidize parts of the metal, make it brittle. As you can see, the long nose pliers definitely make this task so much easier. There. And of course, these don't have to be perfect. They're replicating something that was made in medieval times where they did not have the luxury of a wonderful little torch for a heat source. They had to stick these things in the coals when they were working on them. Oftentimes they were cast. Let's see so far how that matches. It's actually a pretty close likeness to the original. And again, these things don't have to be perfect. They just have to function. Because generally on a small piece of costume work like this sort of hardware, you're never even going to see. Now we're going to kind of pull them out a little bit there to give a little more room. There we are. Just kind of tweaking it a bit here until we get the basic form that we'd like. Okay, now there's that piece. Now, time to make the pin. This is going to be a little something different. I started making them this way a while back. Be very careful so as not to melt through, because this lightweight brass really doesn't take a lot of heat. What I'm trying to do is leave it just a slight loop on the end here, as you can see. Now we have that. Give it a little bit of heat, and then we're going to twist this a few times. That's sufficient. Can really get a little dicey sometimes. Of course, normally I'm not working thinking about the view of the camera, so I can pay a little closer attention to my work right now. I'm having to keep in mind the view that the camera sees as well, so that everyone can kind of get an idea of what we're doing. Alright. What we're doing here is just kind of shaping this guy. Just real simply here. That's what we're going to need for this to fit around something like that. Yeah. Kind of warm this whole piece up a little bit and flatten her on down. Sometimes this process takes a little longer than we would like. Also got a little more bend there than I would like, so we're going to set her down, flatten it down. Really didn't like the way that was fitting, so we're going to make a hard turn on that. It may seem a little picky of me, but if this thing doesn't fit exactly right, then it's not going to function properly. And if the brooch doesn't function, then it's worthless. They're not just there for looks and beauty. These things are left over from an era where you didn't have safety pins and buckles for everything. And for people who are serious about reenactment, they like to keep everything as accurate as possible. And they're also quite useful. You don't have to have everything as perfect if you've got a brooch. You just pin up whatever you have, whether it's pinning up clothing to make it fit or using it as a closure on a cape. It works quite nicely. There we go. Now we have that on where we need it. I'm going to set it right over here. Just heat this back side up just a little and bring it around. And a little more heat on it. There we go. Now on these small brooches, the pins are a real pain in the butt. When we're making larger ones, as you'll see later, they are much simpler to do. But on these little micro brooches, they can be quite difficult and trying, to say the least. Partly because of the size of the material that we're working with. And also just simply because of the way in which they work. Now, this other one we just kind of rolled this end a bit. Make it kind of decorative. And also, tell you what, I think I want to roll it backwards. And also to keep it from being a point that could be a problem later down the road. I'll tell you what, I don't think this one's going to cooperate. So sometimes you just have to leave it up to the metal. And in a case like this, where it appears the metal does not want to cooperate, we're just going to take it and wrap it right around. Just like this. There you go. Now we're going to got a hammer. I need to heat this up. Seeing this is going to be impossible to try to hammer this tiny little piece, so let's just get it around there. There we are. Another thing, I need to check this thing and see exactly how long the pin needs to be. Now the pin needs to extend beyond the edge of the broach. We can always sharpen it and remove some of that excess brass, but we can't put it back once the pin's been finished. Now, this little guy's a little bit tight, so we're going to give it a little room. We're going to heat this ring one more time. Bring it out just a bit. I think I'm going to have to finish because it feels to me like we may have a few raindrops falling. Now, we have essentially match set now. We need to do a little bit more work, and we're still having a little trouble with this guy wanting to wrap on around. It's definitely trying to be a pain. There we go. Just takes it. Little extra heat. Now, that's done. Not quite as loose as I would like it. We can fix that also. So you just heat up this bend right there. And then squeeze. And voila. Now it's all loosened up. And we'll worry about the final grinding of that at another date. When I go to do the new dragon brooch, I'll let everyone see what that looks like. I'll let them see this in the finished product. Now right now, it's still in rough form. We're going to cool it off. There you go. Now, as I said, we're looking at a squared product. Still needs to have this little point, but I will do that with a sanding wheel. We'll probably cut it just a little bit because, as you can see, I clipped it a little long. It really needs to be about right here, but when you're working with melted brass, just the thickness of the flame tip can make up 1/8 of an inch difference or more, and when you're working with a micro brooch, 1/8 of an inch is as good as a mile. So once we're done with these, this would be the sort of thing that you could pull your sleeves up with and pin, or for a lady in a dress that's a little too tall in the front, a little too long in the front rather, they can pull them up, bunch it, and pop one of these little micro brooches in, just like so, and that would actually pull it all up and keep them from tripping over the front of their expensive dress. Anyway, that's all we have for today. On the next little adventure, we're going to be working on a dragon brooch similar to this one, but not exactly, because there's going to be a few little twists, literally and figuratively. And just a little teaser here, rather than simply being made of brass, it's going to be a combination of twisted brass and copper twisted together. It makes for a really interesting look. I've done that a few times over, a few times before on some other brooches and some other brassware, buckles, etc. So it looks really cool. And this new one is simply going to have one dragon head and then some little spirals, quite similar to this little guy here. So hope everybody's looking forward to seeing that. And I'll visit with y'all again. As always, anytime you try to do any kind of work in the shop, anytime you're dealing with sharp instruments, flames, torches, you know, anything like that. Always be sure and take all the necessary safety precautions. I know honestly I should have been wearing gloves in this one. I have been doing this for a very long time, so sometimes I do forego some of the different protective gear. And for me personally, I prefer to have the added dexterity, but that's why we're using these lovely little long-nosed pliers. And you never get anywhere near the hot end of the metal because it can definitely burn you very severely. Anyway, that's everything. So if you want to try to go out and make some of this stuff on your own, just read up on everything, educate yourself on your tools, know them forward and backwards before you delve into any of these sort of projects, and just be safe, take your time, and I'm sure you'll love all the products that you have completed later. That's all we have for the day. I have a little bit of work I need to do in the garden before it starts to rain. So y'all have a wonderful day. Bye.